A lot of information about College Football 25 was just released today. There is a lot of positives, but there are some disappointments that I will be going over today. Make sure you stick around as I go over everything you need to know from the leaks today and what people are saying about what was just released. The first part here says, you will not be able to edit the attributes of real-life players in the rosters. You can edit created players, but there supposedly will be blocks to keep you from making a player like Arch Manning, who did not opt into the game. In recent days, a handful of starting players have tweeted that they'd like to be in the game and don't know how to opt in. I don't know if or when they will get updated. I guess this makes sense. You can only edit the players you create. You can't edit people that already exist in the game, so it is what it is. That isn't too heartbreaking of news, I guess. 2 says, custom conferences are back. Gamers can move schools around and put up to 20 teams in a conference. They can't create new conferences from scratch, but they can build a Pac-12 back up if they'd like. They can choose the number of league games that conferences play and change the location of the conference championship games. All future non-conference games scheduled out in real life show up in this game, even the distant home and homes in the 2030s. Players can create new non-conference games but can't put them at neutral sites. Week 0 is a new addition to the game, but the quasi-regular game played in Ireland is not an option. Generic FCS directional programs are in the game, but no real FCS schools are, and many FCS schools have publicly complained about their absence. Most of the stuff we already knew, especially stuff about FCS, we knew they didn't have the time and resources to put FCS completely into the game, so I don't know why the teams are complaining, because they knew it wasn't going to happen. The thing about custom conferences is a very good thing that is going to be confirmed in this game. It says they can't create new ones from scratch. That's not that big of a deal. I wasn't really planning on doing that anyway. I just want to be able to move teams around. If for some reason my Dynasty team fits better in another conference, or you can kind of understand what I mean. 3 says, as a Dynasty coach, you can give yourself a backstory as a motivator, recruiter, or tactician. Use 11 skill trees for coaching abilities. You can grow the skills, but you can't be great at everything. You also manage your coordinators and have the opportunity to fire them after the season and poach new ones from other schools. This is obviously something that was in NCAA 14, as well as a lot of sports games where you have a skill tree and you can also choose where you're starting with, so you kind of upgrade your points, and your coach is based on what traits you pick at the beginning and then you upgrade them. Basically, it's pretty straightforward, so it's not a huge surprise they would include it in here. And the thing about managing your coordinators, that's a good plus too, because some people were kind of up in the air about that. They didn't know if it was going to be in the game, but here we have it in writing that it is confirmed in this game. 4 says, the 4-game redshirt rule also exists, so the games played stat will be worth keeping in mind when managing a roster, and there will be no 6th or 7th year seniors in this game. This one doesn't hold a whole bunch of significance, it's just kind of there, so it is what it is what I just read, and there's not really anything else to it. 5 says, the recruiting process is deeper than ever. Each class includes 4,000 prospects, including athletes who are back in the game, but you cannot create a prospect. Coaches have a certain number of hours to commit each week to scouting and recruiting, and a team can sign up to 35 players. They can encourage players to transfer to bring roster under 85 scholarships, which essentially works like cutting them because they can't decline it. Some pipelines have narrowed to include cities like Atlanta. Some recruits have deal breakers, meaning there are simply certain things that 5-star recruits want that smaller schools can't meet. You will once again have the option to send the house in recruiting and throw a lot of hours at a kid. It's a stage-based process where you try to keep your school above the recruit's cut line. This one is very important for many reasons. First, it says that there are 4,000 prospects, which is probably more than enough. I don't know the number for 14, but it's probably a little bit less or somewhere similar. So that's good. But the one thing people don't like is they say you cannot create prospects, which personally I wasn't too worried about it when I read it, but seeing in the comments a lot of people were complaining that was their main issues, as well as what I'm going to cover later with the game. So that is what it is. We're not going to change anything. They also is similar where you are balancing your recruiting and your scouting per week throughout the season, so that makes sense. And then finally it says you can throw the house, which is basically just saying put all your eggs in one basket and try to get this one player to come to your school. 6 says, NIL does not exist in Dynasty mode. Brand exposure has replaced TV exposure and serves as the NIL stand-in during recruiting pitches. The explanation from EA folks was that the NIL landscape changed seemingly each month and they didn't want to commit to something only for it to change. Plus, pay to play is still against NCAA rules. This one made me the most mad personally. I don't know how they can come out here and say that they can't include it because NIL changes each month. When Road to Glory, it's one of the main features behind everything that goes on is getting NIL deals. Brand exposure just seems weak and doesn't like NIL is just a huge part of how teams are getting players nowadays. I don't care if it's not directly associated with the school, there has to be something better. So I just think they completely missed the boat with not having NIL in Dynasty, and especially when they have it in Road to Glory, so they could have easily done it. I don't know why they didn't choose to include it, because you can send these players $5 million and say come to my school. But maybe I'm just being ignorant. I just really want NIL to be in Dynasty, and now they're saying it's not even going to be in it at all. 7 says, recruiting visits can be fashion specific to what a player wants. If playing time is one of his biggest motivations, he can sit in a position meeting room. Inviting multiple quarterbacks to visit on the same weekend could hurt you. There is a risk and reward to certain weekends. A win against a bad opponent won't help you as much, and a loss could hurt your standing. A win against a good team will help. Once again, a pretty simple one. It makes sense. If you have a recruit that wants this, you're going to tailor to their needs. You can do, visits, and you can bring players. If you win big games, they'll be more inclined to join your program. So that makes sense, and that's decently realistic. 8 says, instead of working like the free agency, the transfer portal is woven into the normal recruiting process after the season. When this part of the calendar arrives, you have to split your hours between high school recruits and transfers, the latter of whom are not available during the season. No tampering. Prospective transfers have star ratings, and their recruiting process works much like its high school counterpart. A few years into your dynasty, new computer players in the portal may remember whether you recruited them out of high school. Service academies can take transfers the same as everyone else, even though it doesn't exactly work like that in real life. At the end of the season, coaches will be faced with more players than ever who want to go to the NFL or transfer for reasons such as playing style or pro potential, and given the chance to persuade them to stay. I think it's cool that they made it so you could not interact with transfers during the season, and they also said that they were a member if you recruited them out of high school, so I think that's a good addition, and I don't know how realistic that is, but I still think that'll be cool. They said that service academies can take transfers, even though that's not how it works in real life, and I'm not exactly sure how it works in real life, but it is what it is. It's a video game, so once again, they can do what they want with that. And then you're going to have to persuade players who want to leave for the NFL, and they're probably going to do the promise system that other games do, where you say, if you stay, I promise that we'll have more than 30 passing touchdowns, and it's like a wide receiver or something. So it's like you have to promise, and then if you don't hold your promises, there are consequences. But I'm just throwing that out there. That's not confirmed or anything. I'm just saying what it could be like based on what I've seen in other games that have similar systems. Finally, 9 says, to answer a question I received quite a bit, you cannot export College Football 25 Dynasty draft classes into Madden. EA only has players' licenses for their college likeness, not their NFL likeness. Although players join the NFLPA and the associated license early the next spring, they're not added to Madden until the late summer in the new game. This will still be the case years into your dynasty after all the real players have filtered out. You won't be able to export computer-rated generated classes either. You can, however, export your Road to Glory player to Superstar mode in Madden. Once again, this makes a lot of sense. There's stuff with copyright where they can't have rookies and college players in Madden until it's late enough where they have signed their rights or whatever you want to say. But the good news is you saw it circled. I did not do that, by the way. Someone else did it. But you can export your Road to Glory player into Madden, so that's something a lot of people wanted, so I'm glad that they chose to include it in the game. Finally, the thing that has the most people worked up and the most people angry on Twitter and everything else is that there is no high school football in Road to Glory. You cannot play high school games. You pick your college when you begin, and that's where you start. And I don't know how to feel about this, because some people are saying that high school games are tedious, while other people are saying that's the whole fun, is getting recruited and building your player up. And I still stand somewhere in the middle. I haven't really made my mind up about how I'm supposed to feel, and I don't know if I will, because it is what it is. I say that a lot, but the game will come out, you'll play Road to Glory, and there's no high school, so there's nothing we can change about that. We'll just have to wait and see, but that is a little bit of a bummer. I'd be lying if I say I won't miss high school games at least a little bit. So it is what it is, and trust me, that's 100% confirmed. I didn't just make that up. With that being said, thank you so much for watching if you made it this far, and I hope I will see you in the next one.